Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We discuss all things aviation, and Jalotube here welcoming you back in today's episode. We're dealing with the quick fact we've titled Squawk Code. What is a Squawk Code and when do you use it? We're going to be looking at the three emergency Squawk Codes and breaking them down for you to easily understand them. So the Squawk Code mainly is there to assist ATC to identify aircraft within its radar coverage. So the Squawk Code comes out of what we call the transponder in an aircraft. I'm talking here in the context of a light training aircraft in general aviation. It comes out of what we call the transponder. Now the word transponder obviously is made up of two words, a transmitter and a responder to the transmissions of an equipment on the ground called the secondary surveillance radar. So the transponder basically deals with the transmission and reception of signals to and from the ground-based secondary surveillance radar, which then gets transmitted to a blip on the screen of the controller at the airport to then seize the position of the aircraft in his radar screen, and is therefore able to identify that particular aircraft. So once identified in this way, the controller will then be able to pull out that aircraft's flight plan and be able to see where it departed from and where it's going to, and what its intended flight path is. Sometimes the controller will ask the pilot to press the ident button on the transponder, and this allows the aircraft to be identified on the radar screen of the controller. And in that way, the controller on the ground is able to see which aircraft he's communicating with and what position is it at. Our discussion focuses on three Squawk codes, very important Squawk codes that are used in cases of emergency. Quite often these are abbreviated into just three letters, I, C, and E, ICE. Now, we're talking about ice block here, or ice cream, or some other form of ice. In this context, ICE basically means that there are three Squawk codes. The first one is 7500, the second one is 7600, the third one is 7700. Now, the first one corresponds with the I. The 7500 corresponds with the I, which stands for interference. So in case there's interference in the cockpit, in case the aircraft is being interfered with, let's say in the context of hijacking, the pilot will then have to Squawk 7500. Now, the second one in the ICE acronym is C, which stands for communication. In other words, when there's communication failure, if a pilot experiences radio failure, one of the things he needs to do is to Squawk 760 and then comply with radio failure procedures. So to the controller sitting on the ground, he can see on the radar screen that we are dealing with an aircraft here which has just lost radio communication. They will then be able to vector the pilot in using light signals. When he gets to the airport, he will be able to get his landing clearances using light signals from the tower. The third letter in the ICE acronym is E, which corresponds with the Squawk code 7700. Now, that Squawk code is for emergencies. In case the aircraft is experiencing an emergency and it requires immediate assistance from ATC, the pilot would then Squawk 7700, and ATC would immediately know that that aircraft requires immediate assistance. It is undergoing an emergency. Obviously, every pilot is trained on these Squawk codes, or the concept of a Squawk in general. But the interesting thing is that what you get trained on in theory and the moment you need to use it in practice, those are two different experiences. I remember the very first time I used a Squawk code while flying, doing a cross-country flight, a solo cross-country. I had just passed the Beckons in the Western Cape, and I was en route to Saldanha. And obviously I had to get in touch with Langaban and the ATC. They're very, very, very friendly guys. And they asked me to, Squawk a particular code. They gave me a particular Squawk code. And it was time for me to, to test my theory against my the practical application of a Squawk code. And because I had never Squawked before while flying alone, I had to immediately think on my feet until ATC stand by and looked at my transponder, looked at my instruments, and figure out what do they want me to do. Theoretically it seems very simple, but the first time you're faced with, the need to actually apply that or enter that Squawk code in your transponder, it's one of those moments. Because remember, I wasn't with my instructor on that day. I was flying on my own, and for the first time, ATC asked me to enter a particular Squawk code, and I had to think. Wait a minute, how do I operate the transponder to give me the Squawk code that I need? But quickly I figured it out, and I went back to ATC and I confirmed I just scoped that particular code, and they confirmed seeing me on their radar, and they then gave me instructions to continue to Saldanha, and all was good. I hope it was an enjoyable short video, and if it was, please do click the like button, and do not forget to subscribe. It's the only way we can grow this channel. It's the only way we can reach out to other aviators out there, potential or aspiring aviators who need to be inspired and given insights into what the aviation industry holds for them. So, and remember also, we always emphasize that with every hour the cockpit beckons. So every hour that passes by, make it matter, make it be a productive hour. So for every hour that passes by, make sure it's an hour you're spending towards your reading, for your subjects, towards reading, for your flight preparation, towards you flying across doing across countries, or whatever it is that you need to do, whether you are in engagement with fellow aviators, whether you're in engagement with aviators who are a step ahead of you, just to get that motivation to keep moving, to know how the industry works. Keep adding those hours indeed you shall surely enter that cockpit, because that is eventually that's the goal we're working towards. So until next time, Angelo Tibe here signing out and saying keep well.